That's interesting. Can you expand on that? So a lot of people don't see that. They just don't see what's happening right now in the Middle East to be the precipice for more stability. But in some ways, like I think the Middle East has got a fork in the road for some countries, where Lebanon now, without Hezbollah, without military power of Hezbollah, has the ability to get closer to the West, which allows it to be more prosperous. If you look at all countries in the Middle East, the ones that are aligned with the West are more prosperous, whether you like or dislike the West. But the alternative is more instability. It's similar to what we're seeing in Syria. Now you've got different rebel groups. We talked about it earlier. You've got a Kurdish group. You've got the Turkish-backed group fighting together in Syria. I know you're an optimist, but if I had to ask you to give a likelihood of both possibilities.
Yeah. Great question. I'm optimist, but I'm realist. Let me elaborate on the situation in the Middle East here. We have 22 Arab countries. I like to separate the Arab world into two parts. And this is going to be fascinating for you. Look at the 6 monarchies in the Arab world. GCC members, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, UAE, Oman, Bahrain, Qatar. All kingdoms. And look at the Kingdom of Jordan. Clearly, they don't have much resources, yet very stable, in a very nasty neighborhood around them. Look at Morocco. So 8 kingdoms, relatively speaking, are doing great. Regardless of having oil and gas or not. They are stable and doing, relatively speaking, great. But look at all the Arab Republic countries in Arab world. Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Palestine, Yemen, Somalia, Djibouti, Tunis, Libya. All either they have civil wars, or they've been devastated, or demolished, or in bad shape. The only exception is Egypt. And Egypt is doing relatively well because the huge support coming from the 6 monarchies in the region. And guess what? Among those countries who are really doing bad, Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Yemen, and even Sudan, what's common ground among all of them? It's Iran. It's the interference of Iran in all those countries.
Why? Why is Iran doing that?
Look, the doctrine of Iran, the raison d'etre is revolutionary. It's living on instability. And that's what created all over the place. Look at Yemen, what's happening in Yemen. Yemen was doing great. Look what's happening to right now. It's almost a complete collapse. Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Palestine. Even Sudan, they're interfering. So whenever clearly, I'm not saying that all those countries are in deep trouble just because of Iran, but Iran played a huge role. These countries being destabilized and not doing great.
The optimistic view is that Iran weakening would allow those countries to move away from Iran's grip. But what would be the alternative? So how would that work? Would they have to be? What would Iran have to do now that they're weakened? Because when you have someone in the corner, there's 2 outcomes. They become your friend. They have to normalize relations, but they have to save face because their raison d'etre is revolution. So if their raison d'etre is revolution, then they cannot normalize relations with the West. So they keep fighting, but then what, a direct war?
Look, we are now in transition United States. So I think we have to give this time to play. Clearly, the Biden administration was really, I would say, somehow accommodating for the Iranian regime. I mean, look, with all the sanctions, Iran was still producing 3.5 to 4 million barrels a day and exporting the bulk of it. So all that with the sanctions. So really, the Biden administration was not really imposing the so-called sanctions heavily on Iran. Clearly now we're going to have a new administration, and we have to see what Mr. Trump is going to do and how he's going to act and react to what's happening in Iran. Clearly, Iran can only understand force. And look what happened between when Israel attacked them aggressively a few times. They shook them, and as a result of that, their support to the Syrian regime diminished substantially, which triggered and caused the collapse of the Syrian regime. That was one of the main reasons there. I mean, you had a lot of Iranian personnel, a lot of Iranian Revolutionary Guard, and their Hezbollah surrogates being in Syria. Clearly, so when you hit them hard, these people really listen and back off.
So are you implying that force will be the only way to get Iran to change?
I think force is one of the ways, for sure. But you cannot be with them lenient, for sure. You have to be tough and aggressive with them for them to listen. And look what happened. Syria is a great example. Great example. Look, they just gave up completely on that. On their major ally in the Arab world was Syria. Clearly, relation with Iraq is still strong, but it's not as strong with the ex-Syrian regime.
Assad regime, yes.